A 600-foot Navy ship, 300 men aboard. The last radio call, weather fair, all well. Then nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no mayday. The ship simply stopped existing. This is Bermuda. Sitting in the middle of the most infamous stretch of ocean on the planet. A patch of the Atlantic that has swallowed ships and aircraft without leaving a trace. And somehow, this same tiny rock, no rivers, no lakes, no oil, no gold, no minerals, is one of the wealthiest places on Earth. A place that erases everything that crosses it. And a place that built a fortune out of having nothing at all. How do both of those things happen on the same 8 square miles of limestone? It gets stranger. 5 military bombers took off on a routine training flight in broad daylight. Clear skies, experienced crews. None of them came back, and the rescue plane sent to find them vanished too within minutes of takeoff. Decades later, a 23-foot cabin cruiser called for a tow less than a mile from shore. Help arrived 19 minutes later. No boat, no debris, not even an oil slick. 19 minutes, and the ocean had already erased it completely. And on that same patch of water, the part of the map everyone's scared of, sits an island with one of the highest per capita incomes on the planet, built without a single natural resource to sell. 2 impossibilities, sharing one tiny rock. July 1609. A hurricane rips across the Atlantic and catches an English fleet bound for the new colony at Jamestown. The flagship, the Sea Venture, is torn from its course, thrown against a ring of coral reefs, and driven aground on an island no European had ever settled. All 150 people on board survive, but what they find on shore is nothing like a paradise. No rivers, no lakes, no spring, no stream, not one drop of fresh water anywhere. Just a lonely limestone rock in the middle of the ocean. They stay 10 months. They hunt the wild hogs left behind by earlier Spanish sailors. They gather sea turtles by hand, and using Bermuda cedar and the salvaged timbers of their own wrecked ship, they build 2 brand new vessels and sail on to Virginia. The account of their survival, published back in London, is widely believed to have inspired Shakespeare's final play, The Tempest. An island with nothing had already produced something extraordinary, and it hadn't even been settled yet. Bermuda isn't really an island. It's the summit of a dead volcano. Roughly 30 to 35 million years ago, a geological hotspot pushed a mountain up from the Atlantic floor, more than 4,300 meters below the surface. The volcano went extinct, but the ocean kept building on top of it. Coral reefs growing, shells and sediment piling up layer by layer, until a limestone cap, nearly 60 meters thick, sealed the old volcanic rock beneath it. Everything you see on Bermuda today, the beaches, the hills, the roads, is that limestone shell. And limestone is porous. Rain doesn't collect on it. It disappears straight through, which is exactly why the Sea Venture's survivors found no fresh water at all. Bermuda sits inside the Sargasso Sea, the only sea on Earth with no coastline. It isn't bordered by land, it's bordered by currents. 4 of them circle around it, and the strongest, the Gulf Stream, carries warm tropical water north, and wraps it around the island like a blanket. That's the only reason coral can survive this far from the tropics at all. Bermuda hosts the northernmost coral reef system in the Atlantic, 440 kilometers of living reef that by every normal rule of ocean temperature simply shouldn't exist at this latitude. Zoom out, and Bermuda sits at one corner of a rough triangle stretching to Miami and San Juan, 500,000 square miles of open Atlantic with no official borders and no agreement on a map. But the seafloor inside it is anything but uniform. In places, the water is barely knee-deep. A few miles further, it drops more than 2 kilometers straight down. Further out, the Puerto Rico Trench plunges to over 8,300 meters, deep enough to bury Mount Everest with a kilometer of water to spare. It's a landscape of extremes, both above the waterline and far, far below it. Horseshoe Bay is one of the most photographed beaches in the world, famous for sand that glows a soft, unmistakable pink. For decades, the popular explanation was simple: fragments of red coral ground down by the surf. It's a nice story. It's also wrong. The real source is a microscopic organism called Homo trema rubrum, a single-celled creature with a bright red shell that lives clinging to the underside of Bermuda's coral reefs, completely invisible from the surface. It isn't the coral producing the color at all. It's what happens next. Parrotfish graze on the reef, and as they feed, they crush these tiny red shells along with everything else, grinding them down into fragments smaller than a grain of rice. Those fragments wash ashore and mix into the ordinary white limestone sand. Millions of them, one beach's worth of color, manufactured one bite at a time by a fish that has no idea it's an artist. The postcard-perfect pink sand isn't geology, it's digestion. And it's been running on a loop for longer than anyone has been taking pictures of it. Walk that beach today, and you're standing on the byproduct of thousands of reef organisms filtered through a fish, one grain at a time, for centuries, a whole coastline colored by a food chain almost no visitor ever notices. Walk through Bermuda during festival season, and you might hear the drums before you see anything else. A driving, layered rhythm that pulls dancers into the street in explosive bursts of color. Towering peacock feather headdresses, masks hiding every face. It looks like pure celebration. The history behind it is heavier. Gombe was created by enslaved Africans brought to Bermuda, who used the dance to preserve an artistic identity that everything else in their lives was designed to strip away. The masks weren't costume flair, they were protection. They hid each dancer's identity from slave owners who saw Gombe gatherings as a threat to control, dangerous enough that the dance was restricted to a single day a year, and at times banned outright. For generations, an entire cultural inheritance survived by literally hiding its own face. Gombe isn't hidden anymore. It's danced openly now, passed from parent to child, performed at national celebrations and cruise ship welcomes alike. But underneath the feathers and the noise is a form of resistance that had to disguise itself just to exist. A tradition that survived by making its defiance look, to anyone not paying attention, like nothing more than a party. So this is the pattern already. A fish's leftovers becoming a world-famous beach. A suppressed tradition becoming a national celebration. Bermuda keeps turning things it never chose, a predator's appetite, an oppressor's fear, into something the world travels to see. Which brings us back to the real question. A rock with no fresh water, no minerals, sitting inside the most dangerous stretch of ocean on Earth. How does that become one of the richest places alive? Here's the twist. The danger was never really there. In 1975, a reference librarian and licensed pilot named Larry Kuhn did something no one else had bothered to do. He went back to the primary sources: Coast Guard logs, weather reports, shipping archives, original newspaper accounts. Case by case, he found the same pattern. Storms present at the time of a disappearance were quietly dropped from the retelling. Ships lost hundreds of miles outside the triangle's boundaries were folded in anyway. A few vanished vessels had never actually existed. The official verdicts followed. The US Coast Guard doesn't recognize the Bermuda Triangle as a zone of specific hazard. No AA has stated plainly that disappearances there happen no more often than in any other well-traveled stretch of ocean. A 2013 World Wildlife Fund study using 12 years of global shipping loss data ranked the Triangle 22nd out of 35 ocean regions for vessel loss, not even in the top 20 most dangerous. So why do ships and planes still go down here? Weather, mechanical failure, human error, the same reasons they go down everywhere. The only difference is what happens after. The Gulf Stream runs straight through the middle of it, and anything it swallows, it carries away and erases within days. The mystery was never supernatural. It was just a current with very good aim. Step away from the myths and the money for a moment, and Bermuda moves at an entirely different speed. Mornings here don't start with car horns. They start with waves against limestone and the smell of salt drifting through narrow lanes between pastel houses. Since 1951, every household has been limited to a single car, and visitors aren't allowed to rent one at all. So the sound that actually fills these roads is the hum of scooters and the occasional horn of a ferry pulling into dock. A commute to work or school is often a few unhurried minutes by bike, close enough that you still wave at people you recognize along the way. Everyone here has known everyone else since childhood, more or less, and it shows in the small things. A greeting on the street, a shopkeeper who remembers your order, a hand offered without being asked. At the end of the day, people don't rush home. They go back to the water, a fishing line here, a paddle there, or just quiet time watching the horizon they grew up beside. Look across Bermuda's hillsides, and you'll notice something strange. Every roof is white, stepped, and gleaming. That's not decoration. It's plumbing. Rain runs down the terraced limestone, channels into narrow gutters, and drains straight into a storage tank built beneath every single home. It's written into building law. Every new house needs a tank sized to match its own roof. The white paint even does double duty, reflecting heat and helping keep the water cleaner. An island with 0 rivers and 0 lakes engineered its entire water supply out of nothing but rooftops and rainfall. It's a small fix to a small problem. But it's the same instinct that later took a much bigger problem, an island surrounded by hurricanes, and turned it into something worth far more than water. Here's the answer. In Hamilton, Bermuda's capital, no building is allowed to rise higher than the cathedral tower. The entire financial district is low-rise, pastel-painted, a few steps from the shoreline. And inside those modest buildings, people sign contracts worth billions of dollars every single day, ensuring the world against disasters they'll never personally see. This is reinsurance, the layer of protection that insurance companies themselves rely on to survive a catastrophic hurricane, earthquake, or global crisis. Bermuda's position between North America and Europe, plus centuries of maritime credibility, turned it into the natural home for this industry. Today, this tiny island holds more than a third of the entire global reinsurance market, provides more catastrophe coverage to American insurers than any other jurisdiction on Earth, and manages roughly $1.5 trillion in assets. An island that once had to capture every raindrop just to survive the dry season now helps absorb the financial shock of hurricanes for the entire planet. No oil, no gold, no minerals. Bermuda simply looked at the one thing it had in overwhelming, terrifying supply, risk itself, and figured out how to sell it back to the world, one contract at a time. There's one more thing you'll notice walking through Hamilton's financial district. Grown men in suits, ties, and blazers, paired with knee-length shorts and tall socks. It sounds like a joke. It isn't. Bermuda shorts trace back to the late 1800s, when British military officers stationed on the island asked to have their trousers shortened against the heat. By the 1920s, Hamilton's businessmen had adopted the look, and local tailors formalized it as legitimate office wear. Today, Bermuda is one of the only places on Earth where shorts qualify as business formal. Bankers wear them, government officials wear them, the premier wears them. What could look like a costume has become something closer to a uniform of belonging. Proof that even in a place built on international finance, the island never fully traded its own identity for anyone else's rulebook. None of this makes Bermuda perfect. Almost everything the island needs, food, fuel, building materials, has to be shipped in across the Atlantic, which keeps the cost of living among the highest in the world. Land is scarce, so housing and development are a constant squeeze. And every hurricane season is a reminder that the same ocean funding the island's wealth can also flood its streets and shut it down for days. Rising sea levels only raise the stakes further for a place that has nowhere higher to retreat. For the people who grew up here, none of that is really the point. Bermuda isn't reinsurance markets or pink sand, or a name that scares sailors. It's the road they biked to school on, the coastline tied to a lifetime of afternoons, the white roof that sheltered their family before they understood why it was white. A rock with nothing became one of the richest places on Earth. But for the people who call it home, its real value was never something you could price. Thanks for watching.